Hey, welcome back to Business 150, Introduction to Management. Hey, you know what this is? This is the last video in this module. Hey, so module number 5, the topic of global business, and our last video, our 5th video, you can see from the title slide, the topic is managing in a global marketplace. And in this particular video, we want to take a look at what are some of the actual practical implications of trying to manage and make wise managerial decisions in a global marketplace with some of the complexities that we've talked about, the landscape, the added layers of complexity and elements you have to consider and deal with. So how do you actually navigate through some of these things in a real global marketplace? After this video, we hope that you'll be able to determine how global business affects management, how you have to adjust your managerial thinking if your company is embracing global business or simply affected by global business, as most businesses are these days. So, what are we talking about? We are basically suggesting that competing in an increasingly global economy is going to provide each and every one of us who works in management with both opportunities and challenges for our managers, and it affects how we engage in all of the 4 managerial functions: planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. Every single one of those functions and activities will be affected by us needing to consider the consequences and influences of an increasingly global economy upon our local business. Now, here's the thing. Even if your firm is decidedly staying in a domestic market, right? You're either, maybe you're too small to think about going global, or you have made the managerial strategic decision that you are not going to try to embrace international business. Even then, you are still going to be affected by things that happen in a global economy, because our supply chains are too intertwined with other countries nowadays for us not to be affected by things that happen halfway around the world. The COVID-19 pandemic is only one example of that, right? Another example is the global economic meltdown of 2008 and 2009, which affected all of us in significant ways, whether or not we were buying mortgage-backed securities or just happened to be civilians out in the marketplace, if you will. And so this is an ever more pressing challenge for management. Even if your business is completely domestic, you will encounter challenges, problems, opportunities, threats from global players. Even if you decide we're only remaining domestic, what happens if a competitor arises from another country who's going to look to try and steal some steak off of your plate? You're going to have to deal with these kinds of things. As, for instance, domestic retail is beginning to understand that Amazon.com is now their biggest enemy wherever they're based, because the internet isn't necessarily based in a particular country, right? I mean, this becomes an ever-pressing challenge for us. And therefore, we have to guard against at least one very prevalent self-problem, which is what we call in the textbook the self-reference criterion. What is a self-reference criterion? It involves, which is typically unconscious, but the way you think about things, right, in your work and in your business, and the way you make decisions, unconsciously references the way that you think about things, your own culture, your own experiences, when you make decisions that are influenced by global decision makers. And so you may think of competition coming from South Korea or Japan or Russia or Europe or wherever else, and you think that they must think the way you do about your domestic business. And of course, that would be an enormous mistake, right? If you think that all others in the global village, in the global marketplace, think about the things that are important to you in exactly the same way you think about them, you lose sight of the great challenge and opportunity to learn to think as others do, and therefore anticipate their decisions, their choices, their behavior by being able to put yourself truly in their decision-making shoes. This is indeed a very large bias and a blind spot that we don't see? Well, because that's what it means to have a blind spot, right? We do this unconsciously, thinking, well, how would I approach it if I was in their shoes? That's the wrong question. How would they approach it since they're in their shoes, right? With all of the cultural presuppositions and different dimensions that we talked about in the second lecture in this whole module, right? Here's a contemporary challenge. You know exactly what this is, right? This is electron microscope close-up of the coronavirus, which we are challenged by and will be continue to be challenged by for the foreseeable future, right? This basically has exposed to us that our thinking about globalizing supply chain was never very mature thinking. We had gotten to the point of saying, hey, it lowers our aggregate costs to farm a supply chain out to China, and that's the end of it. That we're going to live on a reduced expense because we're farming our supply chain out to a place where labor costs are lower, where production costs are lower, and therefore we save money. But we did not really take seriously the old adage, do not put all your eggs in one basket, because you never know when the basket will fall. And of course, this little virus caused the basket to fall and to really expose how vulnerable our global supply chain thinking really was. In fact, it was quite infantile the way we were thinking about global supply chain. And what we are seeing even now, right now, when I'm recording this video, is that firms are beginning to wake up to the fact they had placed all their eggs in one basket and they're not going to make that mistake again. One simple example. Apple is right now in advanced negotiations to migrate at least 25%, somewhere between 20 and 25% of iPhone production to India, to another country rather than China. Why? Is it because the labor costs in India are dramatically lower than China? No, that's not true. The reason why they're looking to migrate, again, is to diversify their footprint, to not have all their eggs in one basket. And I think what we will see, if I was a betting man, is that what we have seen, the aftermath of the coronavirus and COVID-19 pandemic, is we will see more and more global decisions being made with an eye towards diversification for the sake of safety and spreading risk. And we may not even be able to anticipate all the ways that that is going to look within the next 3 to 5 years. We're beginning to see the very beginnings of it. And the way I put it is we're beginning to see our thinking on globalization mature because of one of the consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, we hope that you have been able to see that what this means for us as managers is we need to think more maturely and clearly about what does it mean to extend our reach into an international marketplace. That's really how global business affects management. And so as a principle, what I want to tell you is that the farther you go in your career as a manager, the more you need to be able to anticipate possibilities, to anticipate what are some likely outcomes, and for you to begin to think more and more so in global terms rather than domestic terms. When you think about the possibilities and what are the 3 to 5 possible outcomes of a particular scenario, to include international dimensions in your thinking and in your strategic planning. This is part and parcel with what the implication is for you as a manager in a global marketplace, whether your firm is deeply entrenched in international business, or on the other extreme, if your firm is decidedly rested on remaining completely domestic, you will still need to think globally. That becomes part of being a wise, mature, and proactive manager in today's business world. I hope that's been helpful as you contemplate Chapter 5, each of these micro lectures, the videos, and everything that we've had to say on this. We hope that you will be able to push your managerial thinking forward and consider all the different possible ways that a global economy, a global marketplace, will impact you today and impact you tomorrow. Thanks so much. We hope you've enjoyed this module. We'll see you in the next module. Take care.